Hare Rama, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Reading from Our Family Business by Vaisheshika Prabhu. Oh, we're quite a way on now. Let Krishna do his magic. Today's well-trained distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. Go out of their way to see that the books they distribute are placed in the homes and hands of people who will respect them. In exchange with people, these vigilant distributors explain the importance of the books and take time to befriend the recipients. They also collect the contact information of the beneficiaries and try to bring them closer to Krishna by staying in touch with them. Devotees who do their best in this way may have faith that by Krishna's arrangement, the books will eventually hit their marks. However, even as we who distribute books do our best to bring people closer to devotional service by befriending them and staying in touch, we must also let Krishna do his magic. In other words, teachers of Krishna's message are simply Krishna's instruments. They must try their best to convey Krishna's message, but in the end, no one can make the grand arrangements. Krishna is To illustrate this point, Maitreya Das tells a remarkable story about how a book he distributed to a cavalier person quickly made its way into the life of a sincere soul. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19. This chapter is entitled The Island of Jambudvip. Its text. So, Na Janma Nunam Mahato Na Sobhagam Na Janma Nunam Mahato Na Sobhagam Na Van Na Buddhya Nikritis Tosha Hetu Navana Bodhe Nekritis Tosha Hetu Ter Yad Vishrashtan Api No Vanokashas Ter Yad Vishtan Api No Vanokashas Chakara Sakye Bata Lakshmanagraja Chakara Sakye Bata Lakshmanagraja Shishikonitai Mahaprasheshiki Na Janmanu Na Mahatos Na Savogam Na Vanna Bodhe Nikritas Tosha Hetu Te Yadishritan Abhino Vanokashas Chakara Sakya Bata Lakshmana Graja Na Janmanu Na Mahato Na Sobhagam Navanna bodhi nikitas toshahetu. Te yad vishtristan apinova no kansushas. Chakara sakhe bata lakshmana vraja. Janmanu namahatana sodha. Chakara sakhe bata lakshmana vraja. Ladies. Jammanu namahatana sodha. Navanna bodhi nikitas toshahetu. Te yad vishtristan apinova no kansushas. Now, note, Janma, birth in a very polished aristocratic family. Nunam, indeed, Mahata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Na, no, Sobhagam, great fortune. Na, no, Vag, an elegant manner of speaking. Na, no, Buddhi, sharpness of intelligence. Na, not, Akriti, features of the body. Toshahetu, cause of pleasure to the Lord. Tai, by all those above mentioned qualities. Yat, because. Rishchitan, rejected. Api, although. Na, us. Vana okasha, the inhabitants of the forest. Chakara, accepted. Sakhe, in friendship. Bata, alas. Lakshna agraja, Lord Sri Ramachandra, the elder brother of Lakshman. Translation. One cannot establish a friendship with the Supreme Lord Ramachandra on the basis of material qualities, such as one's birth in an aristocratic family, one's personal beauty, one's eloquence, one's sharp intelligence, or one's superior race or nation. None of these qualifications is actually a prerequisite for friendship with Lord Sri Ramachandra. Otherwise, how is it possible that although we, uncivilized inhabitants of the forest, have not taken noble births, although we have no physical beauty, and although we cannot speak like gentlemen, Lord Ramachandra has nevertheless accepted us as friends? So responsibilities. One cannot establish a friendship with the Supreme Lord Ramachandra on the basis of material qualities, such as one's birth in an aristocratic family, one's personal beauty, one's eloquence, one's sharp intelligence, or one's superior race or nation. None of these qualifications is actually a prerequisite for a friendship with Lord Sri Ramachandra. Otherwise, how is it possible that although we uncivilized inhabitants of the forest have not taken noble births, although we have no physical beauty, and although we cannot speak like gentlemen, Lord Ramachandra has nevertheless accepted us as his friends. Interpreted Krishna expressing her feelings, Srimati Kunti Devi called him a Kinchana Gochara. The prefix A means not, and Kinchana, something of this material world. One may be very proud of his prestigious position, material wealth, beauty, education, and so on. But although these are certainly good qualifications in material dealings, they are not necessary for achieving friendship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who possesses all these material qualities is expected to become a devotee, and when he actually does, the qualities are properly utilized. Those who are puffed up by a high birth, wealth, education, and personal beauty, Janman, Aishvarya, Sruta, Shri, unfortunately do not care for developing Krishna consciousness, nor does the Supreme Personality of Godhead care about all these material qualifications. The Supreme Lord is achieved by devotion. Bhaktiman Abhijananti. One's devotion and sincere desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead are the only qualifications. Rupa Goswami has also said that the price for achieving God's favor is simply one's sincere. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat it is said, Kola Vechas Seva Kera Deka Bhagyasana Brahma Shiva Kanda Yara Dekiya Mahima Dani Jani Andiche Krishna Nahipai Kevala Bhaktira Vas Chaitanya Gosanai. Behold the great fortune of the devotee Kola Veksha. But Brahma and Shiva shed tears upon seeing his greatness. One cannot attain Lord Krishna by any amount of wealth, followers, or learning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is controlled only by pure devotion. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a very sincere devotee whose name was Kolavecha Sridhar, and whose only business was to sell pots made of the skin of banana trees. Whatever income he had, he used 50% for the worship of the Ganges, and with the other 50% he provided for his necessities. On the whole, he was so very poor that he lived in a cottage that had a broken roof with many holes in it. He could not afford brass utensils, and therefore he drank water from an iron pot. Nevertheless, he was a great devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is a typical example of how a poor man with no material possessions can become a most exalted devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one cannot attain shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna or Sri Chaitanya Goswami through material opulence. That shelter is attainable only by pure devotional service. Anya vilasita sunya yana kamanyanam vitam anukulyena krishnanam shilanam bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain. That is called pure devotional service. Oh my God. Shri Chaitanya Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Vedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Vanchikapatruvyascha Kripa Sindhya Vidnam Bhavanyo Vaishnavyo. So Prabhupada starts by quoting Kunti Devi. The translation is referring to Lord Ramachandra and how those that were considered friends were considered as friends not on the basis of their eloquence or high birth, or whatever the material qualifications are there. And he didn't just accept them as servants, Lord Ramachandra accepted them as friends. And then rather than look and say, maybe prerequisites, good qualifications, that are necessary to keep so material and one side and on the other side it's friendship. In this case, so it doesn't seem like it would be difficult to make the right choice. And then Prabhupada saying that those who are puffed up with these things, they don't care for development, Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada says that one's devotion and sincere desire to serve the Supreme Personality of God are the only qualifications. So there is a tendency, we're doing a book distribution marathon now, so there is a tendency to evaluate your ability to perform well on Sankirtan by how many good qualifications they develop. And it is true actually, if you've got some good karma, you can speak nicely, you have an attractive body, then you can do well on Sankirtan, at least for a short period of time. But eventually everyone's good karma runs out. And to continue doing it for a long time, to be in it for the long haul, there has to be something else other than that if you're going to sustain practicing distribution especially. So these are, and the other interesting thing as well is that you may acquire these qualifications when you become a devotee. I've just been reading about Dhruva Maharaj, who's just a 5-year-old boy, and then the Lord appears before him, and because he's so young, he doesn't know what to say. And so to help him, the Lord touches him on the head with the conch shell, the source of all sound vibration. And then suddenly Dhruva Maharaj is able to speak very eloquently. So when we become fearlessly connected with a sincere and devotional desire to serve the Lord, then we can become empowered to do all kinds of things. Speak in all kinds of amazing ways, impress people, and as long as we don't attach our false ego to that and think it's us that are doing it, then everything's fine. And unfortunately, that's what impedes empowerment, is the tendency to consider it's yourself that's doing it, and to take some aggrandizement. And as soon as you're looking for aggrandizement, then you're cashing in your devotional merits, and you're trading them for material qualifications. So we have to be clear on the goal, and clear of what we need to avoid as well, what we're aspiring for. And it's not that we will hope one day to be very opulent, very well situated. We may be, we may not be. But we want to be dear to the Lord, like Kolavera, sweetheart, even though he had nothing practically. Didn't even have a proper pot to drink out of. He was very dear to the Lord. And then the very famous verse from the Nectar of Ocean, render service favorably without desire. So I was just meditating on this morning actually. And sometimes we may experience frustration when we're trying to perform devotional service. Anyone experienced frustration? Frustrated sometimes. So it's interesting in the Bhagavad Gita it explains that frustration is born of the conception of void. Anyone like to explain that? Frustration is born of the conception of void. So if you're doing your service and things aren't going the way that you want them to, for whatever reason, then and you become frustrated, then how is that born of the conception of void? You want to be free from disturbance. I think that would be more impersonalism, wasn't it, to merge into the Brahmajyoti. The conception of void is something a little bit more dark. It's not merging into the light shedding all your responsibilities and just being liberated and carefree. Yeah. Why would you come to the conclusion that it's of a conception of void? Things aren't going your way, you understand. And why would that happen? Why would frustration lead you to conception of void? Yeah.
Status.
Same thing. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we say avoid. And if you think about it, that's actually what we do. We avoid the fact that Krishna's maybe involved in this, and it's happened for a reason. I'm supposed to learn something. We just become frustrated. And the conclusion as well, Krishna can't really be there, or if he is there, he's slept in this morning, because this is a total mess. So it's a denouncing also of blame. Put the blame on Krishna. Or well, actually, just put just take Krishna out, and just it can't be anything. There's no rhyme or reason. I don't know why this has happened. And then the conception of void. So this, and people are very frustrated because they haven't addressed whether there is a God and what their relationship is with him. They've just pushed that aside as unimportant. So certainly they're going to feel frustrated. We're seeing it with Raghunath and I going around the businesses right now, so we haven't had our finger on the pulse so much. There's so many people who are very frustrated about Brexit, about the pandemic, how they're going to keep their business going. And there's all kinds of really wonderful, not just COVID, but all kinds of, there's a lot of other things going around as well. Cancer and, well, one place I was in the other day, a fish place. Between all of them, there's 3 of them in the family, and between all of them, they've got practically everything that could go wrong with the human body amongst them. So it's hard to see how you can make sense of all that and not become frustrated. And that frustration increases the fear of the void after all this, that after all this, there'll be nothing more than was a waste of time. And it's all out of my control. So that frustration may be there because we may consider that it is a prerequisite to be eloquent, and have good intelligence and noble birth, and be beautiful and well situated materially. We may consider these things very important, and then when these things aren't being satisfied, then we become frustrated. And then the frustration will diminish our faith in Krishna. The frustration will start feeling that if Krishna is there, then he's a very, very, very long way away. And then the neighbor to that is the conception of void. So the first stage of seeing Krishna is seeing his hands, seeing him doing his magic, working his magic. And Mahatma was making a nice point that when you're in the mood of a receiver, then you're able to give Krishna enough space to work his magic. So we have to step off, be a little bit detached from what's going on around us to allow Krishna to work his magic and give us just the right thing to say, or the inspiration to do just the right thing, to encourage either a fellow devotee or a conditioned soul to take a step closer to Krishna. So there's an interesting book by Vadanath Maharaj, and periodically throughout the book he runs into some very, very difficult situations, life-threatening situations on a few occasions actually. And every single time it happens, he just stops and starts praying. And as soon as he prays, suddenly there's some amazing arrangement takes place and everything falls back in his favor. So the ability to be able to just step back and think, okay, this is out of my control, this is beyond my ability. Krishna, the really need your help, please, working magic. So allow Krishna the chance to do that. We have to give him a little bit of space to come in. And Mahatma, he calls that the receiver's mood. We should be in the mood of receiver, not the mood of achiever. And these are things that achievers want. Achievers want these things which actually aren't prerequisites for establishing a relationship, in this case with Lord Ramachandra. Birth, aristocratic family, personal beauty, eloquence, sharp intelligence, superior race or nation. None of these are a prerequisite for friendship with Lord Sri Ramachandra. And in fact, not only are they not a prerequisite, but they could also be a disqualification. So that's interesting, isn't it? What would seem like a disadvantage can be advantageous. Lord Chaitanya has come to save the most fallen. And if we're thinking that we're the chosen few, or we're better or more exalted or more special than other people, then that becomes a disqualification. And the more we feel unworthy and incapable and helpless, then the more qualified we are. The more qualified we're becoming to receive the mercy. So that can be a little painful, because it means recalibrating the way we've been trained, the deep samskaras that have been imposed upon us as kids through the educational system, to go out there and be achievers and make your mark. And any questions or comments? Yes, Barbara, what? Say it. Yes, Pepperu.
Krishna, how is it that somebody comes about that? Is there any prerequisite to this?
That's a nice question. So, that question up with that in relation to what we've just been reading. So, what Pip's asking is, these qualifications aren't a prerequisite. So, what is the prerequisite for? Is the prerequisite to be free of other prerequisites? So, Lord Chaitanya comes to save the most fallen first. So I suppose you could say that's one prerequisite. In fact, that's what in the song glorifying Lord Chaitanya, the devotee who's composed the song, he's saying, because I am the most fallen, then I'm at the front of the queue. Because you come to save the most fallen. Well, that's me, by the way. So I'm first before anybody else gets the mercy. So his prerequisite is that he feels he's the most fallen, and the most unfortunate and unworthy, and therefore he's the most eligible for Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So the prerequisite would be humility. Have humility. That if you feel you can do this yourself, you can achieve it. You can control the mantra. You can make Krishna dance. You can do this. You can subjugate Krishna to your will. And then that's a disqualification. And you may have, a big fancy house, a big fancy car, and have all kinds of amazing qualifications, but Krishna's not interested in that. Shishi Koditaya Shishi Ki Jai. There's one nice point that Mahaprabhu makes. He says, Krishna's got everything. The only thing he's not got is your heart. Well, and a few other people's hearts as well. But in terms of your relationship with him, Krishna's got everything. But he hasn't got your heart. And he wants it. He wants you. He wants that loving relationship. Krishna's very greedy for loving relationships. No matter how many he has, he's not satiated. He wants more and more and more. So he's greedy for the relationship with us. He wants that. And we have to become receptive to that, and aware that Krishna's being very proactive actually in establishing a relationship with us. If you look at the whole strategy of how a whole lineage of teachers came down with Lord Chaitanya, after Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda, so many arrangements all being made to come to this point, to orchestrate this amazing plan of having Rath Yatra everywhere, Bhagavatam everywhere, prasadam everywhere, the sound of Krishna everywhere. I mean, that's pretty indicative of somebody that's keen to have us come back, you know, to put it all on a plate and just give you, here's the morning program, here's the process for going back, this is me in the Bhagavatam, this is me in the Maha Mantra, I'm giving you, they say that Krishna, he wants your consciousness. He's more interested in anything else that you've got to offer. What he really wants is your consciousness. He wants you to become absorbed in him, and he wants you to love him. And then he wants to let you reciprocate with him. So just by hearing nicely and associating nicely, we can become more and more aware of the good fortune that we have. You know, it's like when you're growing up there and you have a seed. So that's not the end of the story, you know. Some people may think, wow, I've got a seed for an apple tree, and they just run off and they don't bother planting it. And they're always showing their friends, have you seen this? This is an apple seed. One day it will be a massive tree and we'll have so many apples. And you just carry it around with you for years. You know? You keep showing people at weddings and gatherings, look at this, this is my apple seed. Go and have a look at Pip's Pip over there. It's an amazing apple seed, isn't it? But you've got to plant it. So you've got it now. You've got the seed. It's right there in your lap. You've got the mantra, you've got the process, the Yuga Dharma, you've got the philosophy, you've got the association. It's right there. Plant it and cultivate it. And you've got as much chance as anybody else to have a big apple tree. And there are some people that make a mess of it. They don't plant it properly, or they plant it in the wrong type of soil, or they don't look out for the weeds, and it goes wrong. But as we become older as a society and a movement, we become more wise as to the best way to do it and the best way not. Because in Srila Prabhupada's time, some devotees say, oh, I wish I'd been around when Srila Prabhupada was here, it must have been so nice. But they didn't have many books, and they didn't have much association. If you'd been in the movement for 3 years, you were an older devotee. If you'd been for 5 years, when I joined, it was like that as well, actually. It was only 2 years. Now we have such a resource. We have so many books, so many videos, so many lectures. We have so many devotees that are blossomed, that have been following the process, and they're now, their trees are really bearing fruit. And they're telling us, no, you just carry on. It'll be like this, but just don't do that. Just don't do this. You know? It's very realized, and it's very charted out, mapped out. The book by Shesha Guru on the Sankirtan is amazing. You know, they had that years ago. And Sankalpa Kamudi by Sri Brahma, Sri Bhakti Chintamani. It's really giving a fuller and more clearer picture. So we should really take advantage of all the resources and facilities that we need. It's a nice question, because sometimes you're thinking, well, how is it that I come in contact with this? And why me and so many? So many people are going around thinking that they're the center of the universe and they're the best and they're the most fortunate. And then, on the other hand, we actually do have, you know, you look at famous people, the royal family, and so many people that really seem to be up there and special, and they don't know anything about anything. Prabhupada said that a lot of them will even lose the human form. They'll just come back into bodies of dogs and cats. And it's no good a dog coming up to you and saying, I used to be the king, you know. So, well, it's not doing you much good now, is it? The conclusion of all these so-called prerequisites for being successful. Any other questions? Yes, John.
Prabhupada said about telling people about the Bhagavad Gita and the important people that had read the Bhagavad Gita. And one guy really struck me, and he thought it was really. I was saying Martin Luther King, you know, Mahatma Gandhi, the Beatles, Tupac Shakur, And you're going, really? I read that? Huh? I says, and this is talking about me here, there's a real yoga book, no, yeah. And he goes, oh, wow, sounds pretty far out. But that, over about the important people in the world who read the Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
really, really had, two people I've seen it, really, did they read that book?
Yeah.
See, this is the book you're looking for, no other yoga, this is the yoga book. Everyone's explained it. It's a really nice way to put that over, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it's really nice. It's and it's interesting.
We're just going to that section now by where she was explaining how the books go out, but how they find the right person that's going to read them. There was a statistic years ago that the BBT put together. They'd done some research. It was a meetup ago actually, and they found that on average it was the fifth person who read the book. So you give the person on the street the book, and he says, okay, he takes it back and says to his mum, oh, I met this unusual fellow today, and he gave me this book. It's in Indian or something. And she looks at it and she goes, oh, Arthur will like that. He's a bit funny. He's just come back from India. So Arthur gets it. Arthur's not interested, but he passes it to Bob. And Bob forgets and leaves it on a park bench, walks off. And then John sits down and looks at it and he blows his socks off and he becomes a devotee. So it's hard to say exactly where the book's going to end up. And that's Krishna doing his magic again, because it's beyond our ability to understand. If you look at how we got our first book, I didn't get a book directly. I got a book. I've been handed around this squad actually. They'd all read it. And they all thought it was really funny. It was a Krishna book. And so that was my first contact. So, and some of the ways people, one person was jumping off was about to jump off a cliff, and a bit of paper flew past and stuck on his leg, and he walked off and looked at it, and it was just a bottle, a BTG, and he read it, and he came back down with the find out one, and became a devotee. Another devotee broke in, but he wasn't a devotee at the time. He broke into someone's house. It was taking him ages to get in. He finally got in, and the person started coming down the stairs. He thought, I can't compete with this. It's not a total waste of time. I'm going to grab something. So he grabbed something quickly and ran off. And when he got down the street around the corner, he looked in his hand and it was a Bhagavad Gita. And he read it and became a devotee. So you know, and the book was sitting there knowing this was going to be happening. You know. So, and how could you plan that? How could you know, Sankirtan leader comes in this morning, make sure the book's got in people's homes, so I'm going to get burgled. There's a few burglars, we've got their eyes and we think we're going to make pretty good devotees. And just how can we make that plan? It's just the way, it's just inconceivable really. So we just have to not get in the way, not try and be achievers, not identify ourselves as being the achievers of the results, and just allowing Krishna to do that. There's so much facility starting to come our way now. So obviously Krishna's got some big plans for things happening in Scotland. And the devotees don't forget as well what the Scottish Ashram have done. Just listening to Shiva Maharaj. He's mentioning Prabhupada Charma and some of the Sankirtan devotees. And that's Shiva Maharaj. Krishna is even more all-knowing. So he knows. Lord Ramachandra never forgets. They say a pious man never forgets any good that's been done for him. So that's a prerequisite for getting Lord Chaitanya's blessing. They say if you can act in such a way that melts the heart of the great devotees, then you will surely get Krishna's favor.
Can go another extreme and consider that you can be completely, you can continue to be uncivilized. So this interesting story actually what happened to Dvivida gorilla is actually what he loved Lord Ram. He is coming from those times from Ramayana Lila. He loved Lord Ram, but he was offensive to Lakshman, who represents Guru. So therefore, because of that offensive attitude, although he did a lot of service actually and fight it on behalf of monkeys and on behalf of Ram, because he had offensive attitude, he actually fall down and started to associate with non-devotees and demons, and then eventually, become attacked in Krishna's Leela. He attacked Balaram, and he was killed by Balaram. So there is, while on one hand, one can be like a monkey and etc., one shouldn't go to the extreme of becoming offensive to the devotees. And
What's interesting as well is it's been nearly 2 years since we've been around to see people when we go around the businesses, so they see that there's a difference that's taking place.
Tejas, who were the Prabhupada disciple, who's making the point that a lot of these people that run companies, their main ability, the most important ability, if you want to be a successful businessman, you've got to be able to read people. And no, this one's not going to be any good. You may have all the qualifications, but you didn't close the door behind him. So he's going to be lazy, he'll be troublesome. This one, he just talks all the time. He's not going to get much work done. So they're able to see through the persona and see what the actual qualifications, and they're the ones that do really well. Dale Carnegie was famous for that. He sussed everybody out, and he knew what was the best thing for them to engage in. So they would excel, and the company would excel. So in the same way with us, these business people that we come in contact with, or even people in general to some degree, are aware of our qualities just by the way we're speaking and the way we're conducting ourselves. It's not that they're not aware of it. They have like a sixth sense sometimes, and they can kind of tell. So if you're making advancement, then when you see them a year or two later, then they see, because they're already quite capable of doing that, and they can pick up on something here. But this person does not have the same fear of death as other people do. It's the fear of death actually which is permeating people in general. It's the anxiety that everybody is suffering from. It's this unaddressed difficulty with death, what they're going to be doing, what they should be doing to prepare for that, because they're putting it off all the time. And in their heart of hearts, they know that this is something that needs to be dealt with and addressed. So there's a gnawing anxiety there all the time, and they put this persona of being fine and okay, I've got things worked out, and the time is just ticking away. Whereas for a devotee, he's becoming more and more anticipating. It's considered the most momentous occasion of your existence as the point when you leave the material body. It will be the culmination of all your prayer, devotion, and sacrifice you've made. You're coming closer to that point. So it's they may not consciously be aware of it, but certainly subconsciously. There's like a calmness there, of freedom from anxiety, self-assuredness, an unshakable happiness that you're able to exude by your character and your personality, and that's different than other people, or other people have. And then if you think, well, I can be sloppy and messy because it's not a prerequisite to be tidy and clean, to be a devotee, and that's okay as long as I'm sincere. But if you are sincere, and you are, devotion. If you unpack devotion, if you do things with devotion, if you go into the toilet with devotion, when you come out, the toilet won't be dirtier than when you went in. Otherwise, you didn't go in with devotion. It should be that wherever you go, you're leaving a trail of cleanliness. Then it shows you're devoted. You can't be sloppily devoted. It should be that there's like an aura around you, and everywhere you go, the dust gets wiped off, the things get tidied, and then wherever you go, you're just leaving this. You just have this energy that everything's just getting tidied, and that's the mode of goodness manifesting. And you can't bypass the mode of goodness. Well, I'm in the mode of ignorance right now, but I'm going to chant really, really big rounds, and I'll just slip from the mode of ignorance and go right into Shiva's happening and transcend all the intermediary stages. It's not philosophically possible to do that. You're going to get, when you're getting to the fire, you get warmer. And if you just jump straight on the fire, then you'll burn, You have to build up, you have to get warmer and cleaner. And, you may not have these qualifications, but these are not necessarily qualifications that are indicative of the mode of goodness, you see. So people can confuse that. They can think, well, I'm obviously more mode of goodness than you because my car is bigger than yours, and I've got newer shoes on than you, and I'm wearing jeans that have been chewed by a Siberian tiger that cost me £300. So obviously I'm more qualified than you because you've got a pair of Primark trousers on, and you've got a really grotty jumper, and you're driving a car that should have been thrown on that slightly 10 years ago. So obviously I'm more embodied goodness than you. So people can confuse qualification with externals. And they may be getting worse, they may be getting dirtier and more horrible than they ever were, even though they're getting richer. They've just got more people now running around and cleaning up after them. And if you're just on your own, you don't have anybody helping you or serving you, you got no money, then it's more painful and obvious. But the people that are filling in the gaps for you, and you can be aware of how anxious you are.
If you start comparing yourself, and see, oh, this one is eloquent or have sharp intelligence, personal beauty, so I'm not good for anything, I don't have any of those things, and can feel very discouraging. So I think that should encourage everyone, whoever, feels I don't have any of this, that this is not really indicative that it's, a pure devotion, but, anybody can make it in devotional service by not having any of these things. And not be frustrated if they don't.
Well, it's, if we had a new person come and we said, instead of moving into the Brahmacharya ashram, we're going to fly you over.
You can hang out with, I don't know all the film stars, but Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, all those people. You can just hang out with them. They'll be having granola this morning, and then this afternoon they'll be having a swimming pool. You'd just be in there, you'd be like, wow, fantastic. You wouldn't be like, oh no, I'm not very famous. You'd just be like, wow. You'd be laughing it up, you'd be thinking, there's something really where I can tell my friends when I get back. Through these parents were so cool. So, there's these far off footballers there, and they were kicking the ball, it was so accurate, it's amazing. So in the same way, when we come into the association of devotees, they are like celebrities. They have charisma, and they have all kinds of qualities that we find attractive. But that's okay. I just hang around these guys, and eventually I'll get like this, I'll rub off on me. So we feel very fortunate to come into the association of all the devotees, and the fact that they're more elevated and way ahead of us is fine. That's great. At least we know it's up there and it's achievable. Something to aspire for. And especially if you've seen devotees over a period of 40 years change completely, evolve. It's like amazing. You can be young, you can change, you can achieve very high states of consciousness in a very short space of time. It's possible. It's achievable. It's achievable to be perceivable. You can achieve being a receiver, and being a go-getter, a gold digger. Okay, finish with that. Iskam Guruvinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Haribo, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.